Hello, greetings and good afternoon. Welcome to Watching Brief for the week of the 24th of May 2021. I am joined as ever by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Andy Brockman. Good afternoon, Andy.
Good afternoon, Mark. It's been quite a week, hasn't it?
It really has been quite a week. What a time to launch the new format Watching Brief when the format keeps being completely rewritten every week.
I call it flexible and responsive to events.
Indeed, yes. Very flexible, very responsive. And indeed, today we have an interview with people at the heart of a story which has been unfolding over the course of the past week. And I talk, of course, of the events in and around the Archaeology department at Sheffield University. In the past week, since we initially covered this story, we have seen local newspapers and national and international news outlets waking up to this story and its implications. Not least, for example, local news in the form of, for example, the Sheffield Tab, with a headline 6 days ago saying that University of Sheffield Archaeology Department, quote, was set up to fail in this instance, and that it faces possible closure. Now, at that point, the change.org petition, which we highlighted last week, and incidentally is the continuing to be the link below of the week, at that point, the petition was at 10,000 signatures, and as of recording just now, it appears that we are essentially at 35,000 signatures on that petition. So people have been supporting Sheffield academics and students in great numbers, to the extent that 5 days ago we saw on the BBC, in fact, quite an interesting comment in the form of a headline that said University of Sheffield Archaeology, a department, the threat to that department represents a blow to the UK. These are big words and big implications for what I'm sure it seems the university would hope would be a fairly quiet closure of its archaeology department. We saw in the build-up to the vote a couple of days ago, protests and rallies on campus and around Sheffield. The Sheffield Star here reporting that supporters protest in last bid to save University of Sheffield's Department of Archaeology. And over the course of the week as well, of course, you have been writing a couple of articles, Andy, on the pipeline, have you not?
That's right. I think it's become clear that from the moment the news went public that the department was under threat, which is
Mm.
really only just over a week ago, the archaeological sector, the heritage sector, has really. Well, first of all, I think the reaction was shock that such a prestigious and high-profile department, that its own university would even consider closing it.
Yes.
Sheffield archaeologists, Sheffield graduates are all over the profession and indeed all over the world.
Mm.
And it has particular strengths in osteoarchaeology and zooarchaeology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was a shock. And after that came the thought, well, wait a minute, if Sheffield can be placed in danger like this, what about the rest of us? Is anybody in the profession, is anybody in the sector safe?
Mm. Mm.
And I think that's what lies behind the really unprecedented reaction we've seen. Although other departments are under threat at the moment, I'm thinking particularly of Chester,
Mm-hmm.
where again redundancies are being threatened and a downsizing of the archaeology department, along with other departments in the university, are being considered by the university management. This is almost at a different level of magnitude, and it's provoked a response really internationally. You mentioned the petition earlier. There have been many responses from bodies ranging from the Society of Antiquaries to the Council for British Archaeology, Chartered Institute for Archaeologists, and so on,
Mm.
all saying, up with this, we will not put, this is a really big mistake.
And
As it
a
stands,
great many of these bodies sending letters of support, statements against this closure to higher ups at Sheffield University.
it,
They cannot not have noticed. Put it that way.
well, that's a debatable question. I asked the university media office a couple of days ago if the letters of support, and in particular a letter from a local councillor, um, the council heritage champion, who suggested that the university might be putting at risk its links with the city because it's been doing a huge amount of work in the local communities.
Mm.
Um, they declined to answer whether that had actually been placed in front of the executive board when they took the decision on Tuesday.
Mm.
So We are where we are. It's a story that I think we'll be returning to, but to get an idea of what it felt like to be on the inside of the story, we recorded an interview earlier with Professor Umberto Arbarella, who's Professor of Zooarchaeology at Sheffield, and also with Helen Thompson, who's a PhD candidate. Here's our conversation. Professor Umberto Albarella, you're Professor of Zooarchaeology at the department at Sheffield. Could you just give us a brief account of where this story began? When did you first hear from management that the department was under threat?
Thanks, Andy. First of all, thank you for having us here and to allow us to discuss this issue that we want as many people as possible to know about. The other thing is, please call me Umberto, if that's all right.
I certainly will, thank you.
Okay, well, you know, it's, I mean, formally, that the department was under threat of closure, we only heard it a week ago. So it was a very quick and turbulent time that we have had. I mean, we knew that the university had decided to carry out a review, which we were very much not happy with. I mean, to carry a review in the middle of a major pandemic didn't seem like a great idea. And also the review was started as a consequence of a letter that my head of the department, with our backing, had written to the Vice Chancellor, mentioning all hurdles that we were encountering as a consequence of very kind of obstructive management. It was a long letter in which we specified all the problems we were having, you know, to the point that they were even trying to prevent us applying for grants. And to that letter, we never had any response. Nothing has come through whatsoever. And what they did was just that they started this review, which very much felt like they were putting us on trial. Okay, so we never felt positive about this. So we never felt that there was any kind of sympathy by central management for us. But to be honest with you, we didn't really expect that it would come to something as drastic as suggesting a possible closure of the department. Initially, we could go there. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, before we move on to that, Helen Thompson, you're a PhD candidate at Sheffield at the moment. I understand. When was the student body first aware of this? The university has said that you, as the student body, had input to the review that Umberto's just described. Is that the case?
Sort of. So some students were consulted. The majority of the student body had no clue. I didn't find out until Wednesday that a review had even taken place. I would say 90% of students didn't know it was happening at all, and that there was any possibility that the department could close. On top of that, the students that were involved with the review meetings, I've spoken to several. They did not know in their first meeting that it was a review for the department. They didn't know why they were attending the meeting in the first place. They weren't given an agenda for the meeting. And when they asked why they were there, they were told that this was something they did all the time to make sure the university was serving the department well.
I understand. And Umberto, I understand that from your point of view, from the staff point of view, a lot of this appears to have been led by the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the university. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems that she was driving the process. Yeah.
Right.
And to be honest with you, we never had any feeling that she had any interest in our views, in our opinions. We had 2 meetings with her, and we would ask questions. She just wouldn't answer them.
So let's cut to just over a week ago, last Wednesday. You're presented with 3 proposals from the university that are going to go towards the before the meeting of the university executive board. Can you describe those proposals for us and how you reacted to them at the time?
Sorry, is this a question for me or for Helen?
Yes, Umberto, yes, if you would, please.
Okay. Well, there were three options, but to be honest with you, our interpretation was that largely these were two. One option was to invest in keep the department open and invest in it. The other option was to close it altogether. And the third option was to close it and save some parts of the department and move it to other areas. In particular, they identified two areas which could be saved. One, they said cultural heritage, which, to be honest with you, has never been an area of a special strength for our department. But what we do is that we have a very successful master's course, which attracts lots of students. Okay, so that this is what they were interested in. They could see the students bring money, and many of those students are Chinese, and so they even bring international fees. So this is the attraction for them. We don't have even a permanent member of staff who is in charge of that particular course. I mean, we have a temporary member of staff who is absolutely excellent, Kat Fennelly. She's great, but I mean, it just gives you an idea of what they regard as strength. And the other area, they say, it was human osteology. When the Vice Chancellor came to us, we mentioned human osteology. But then in the course of the conversation, she was rather contradictory. And at some point she mentioned also osteoarchaeology, which of course is a broader subject that would also involve the zooarchaeology. So it wasn't, my impression was that she didn't really understand the difference. And then she mentioned that these people could be moved to the medical school. And then in the letter we were sent, the word osteoarchaeology came up again. And I still don't know what she means for that. That just gives you an idea of the superficiality of this approach. So anyway, could I just say very quickly?
Of course,
sorry,
yes.
I don't want to. Very quickly, I mean, answering your question of these three options, we always felt that they would go for the third one because they would present it as a kind of middle option, okay? So an intermediate option. Why we understood perfectly well, they wanted to close the department and then they were offering this kind of, they would spin it as some kind of investment. But it doesn't really make any intellectual sense whatsoever.
And I should just say for our viewers that the press release from the university press office did couch this particular decision in terms of investing in excellence and strengths of the department. So that's their point of view. One of the criticisms of the way this was presented was that it was a very rushed timetable. For the decision was to be made less than a week after it was actually announced to you as staff and students. Two quick questions. First of all, how many redundancies potentially are we talking about here, Umberto?
Well, the department in terms of teaching staff is tiny at the moment because it used to be a big department, one of the largest department in the country. When I started, there were 29 teaching staff. Now there are 11 of them. So I think if they had to make all of us redundant in terms of permanent teaching staff, I mean, it's just 11 of us. But we shouldn't forget that the technicians and professional services, who are really excellent people we have. So there is, it's difficult to count them because many of them, this has been university strategy, have been on short-term contract, part-time contract, but basically we are talking about other 5 or 6 people. But, in terms of general university finances, we're not that expensive to them.
And Helen, when you see those proposals and you see that at the very best, a large proportion of your teaching staff and technicians, support staff might be made redundant, as somebody who's going through, all the stress and commitment of writing a PhD, what did that make you feel and your colleagues feel in the student body?
Not great. We feel pretty, I think, disrespected by the university is probably the best way I have of putting it. Me personally, I'm in materials, so my area isn't seen as an area of strength by the university. I'm only 6 months into my PhD as well, so I need 2.5 years more of support, of lab access, supervision. and it's really unclear as to, if my supervisor will be made redundant or not. And they haven't given us any timeline or any actions that are going to happen. They've sent us a link to the student protection plan that was written in 2018, which is very broad, and they haven't given us any idea as to how this is actually going to be carried out and how it will affect current students.
And Umberto, without giving away anything that you can't speak about openly on screen like this, but have you, as members of the faculty, been given any additional information on this? Have you been given the business case behind the review, or anything really that talks about the structure of this and how the university anticipates this happening?
No, nothing. I mean, to be honest with you, to some extent, that's understandable. It's a decision they have taken now. Obviously, there are some steps, so I have some sympathy for them in that. I mean, obviously, information is coming in different stages. But what I actually find very, I'm puzzling, really, and quite unbelievable, is that they have done a review, and I presume they have written a report as a consequence of the review, but we have never seen a report. And even the PowerPoint presentation that was given by the Pro-Vice Chancellor when she came to talk to us, so she didn't even give us a copy. The only way we have a copy is because one of my colleagues was printing the screen on a regular basis. Very, very little transparency, really.
And moving forward, you have, I think, by anybody's standards, waged a very effective campaign to mobilise the rest of the UK and actually international archaeology community. I think I checked just before we started recording this, and the petition on change.org is now running at well over 35,000 names, which is quite remarkable given it only started less than a week ago. I think one of your student colleagues, Liam Hand, initiated it. Do you think the university has been taken aback by the level of support that what maybe they thought was an internal issue is now becoming actually a national and international issue in the archaeology sector?
Well, I think they must have been completely asleep not to notice, and I guess they have noticed. And I think the last email, the email we've received today, the Vice Chancellor has written to all staff, trying to justify this, and you could see, and they also mentioned media presence, and so I think they are getting a little bit anxious about this. I mean, to be honest with you, this is becoming a major, major embarrassment for the university management. I mean, in addition to the petition, you have to bear in mind, Andy, I mean, the university executive must have received something like 1,500 messages from all over the world. But we are not talking about standard messages. We are talking about people writing proper letters explaining why this is some form of cultural vandalism, really, that they are doing. Well, that's my words. So I think the reaction is unbelievable. And but in a way, I expected it. I knew the standing of my department in the world. And in two of the meetings with the Pro-Vice Chancellor, I warned her. I said, look, you have no idea what this is going to cause if you decide to close the department. You just ignored me. Okay. I hope she's not ignoring me now.
And the next milestone in this is, I think, June the 23rd, when University Senate meets to discuss the decision that was made by the executive board yesterday, and then either ratify the decision or reject it. Helen, what are you as the student body planning to do? And then I'll ask the same question of Umberto to finish.
Well, first off, we're just going to keep campaigning, keep posting on social media and getting the word out there, speaking to media when we have the chances to. We're trying to coordinate exactly what to do next still. This only happened officially yesterday. So we've had a lot of meetings and a lot of discussions on how we should best approach it. I think our priority as students is to talk to our student union representatives. they have a chance to sit on the Senate Council meeting on the 23rd, I believe, and several of us feel as though the process was not handled appropriately in terms of the students. So I think that's our next best avenue to take this.
And Umberto, again, just before we started recording this, I noticed that your union, the University College Union, had issued a very strong tweet in support, rejecting what the university's done and saying that they were in for a fight. How do you see things proceeding over the next month or so and through to Senate?
Well, we'll carry on campaigning, as Helen said. Well, first of all, let me acknowledge two things. One, the students' body, unbelievable. These people just have been great in all respects. People like Helen and many of her colleagues. We have worked just together. They know what we do for them, and we know their value. So that has been just moving, unbelievable. You know, I can't be grateful enough. I just feel very emotional about this. And the other thing I should say is that the union has been totally with us. Okay, so I'm very proud of my branch. We are an excellent branch in Sheffield, totally with us. Together with all the international community, I should thank them too. One thing I just want to clarify on this, on the basis of what you said, that the Senate won't make the decision. The Senate will discuss it, but it's still an advisory body. The final decision is the University Council. So I think there are two further steps before a final decision is made. But this has become more important for us than the actual destiny of our department. It's become a much bigger battle. This is a battle to defend what is valuable for us as human beings. And this is the path we're taking.
I think that's a very good note to end it on. I'm sure we're going to be coming back to this story, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again in the near future. So Helen Thompson and Professor Umberto Albarella, thank you very much for joining us on Archaeosoup on the Watching Brief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I can scarcely imagine what it's been like to be on the receiving end of this at Sheffield, and it certainly sounds as though there are questions to be answered in terms of how management and senior management are communicating, at the very least, with people in the archaeology department. And I guess we'll leave those comments there for now, in so much as hopefully some of those answers will come to light in the days to come. I think something that's worthwhile commenting on, though, is how this has been making us feel, because I don't know about you, but on Twitter and elsewhere, an awful lot of my friends who happen to be obviously archaeologists and related professionals have been dismayed, dejected, downright depressed in this with this news. One friend in particular, I won't expand too much on their situation, has more or less decided to walk away entirely from the sector, and not just based on the Sheffield story, but also just the general context that the heritage sector finds itself in. And if I'm honest, this week has been very difficult for me. I found it really quite hard to concentrate on anything in particular in terms of really, joyful, creative, educational endeavours and talking about archaeology with the public, because it feels as though. It feels a little bit as though our sector is being zeroed out at the moment, and it's hard to escape that sensation, isn't it? How has it been for you the past week?
Well, it's certainly been very intense. The Sheffield story really it almost came out of nowhere as far as the wider sector's concerned, and hearing what Professor Albarella and Helen had to say earlier, it's clear that the university has almost certainly tried to keep a lid on it for as long as possible. The process was sort of quiet and almost in the background, and then they bang, make the announcements, make the proposals, and the decision's going to be made in a week's time whether or not archaeology stays at Sheffield. And one argument is that was an artificially fast timetable to get the thing done and dusted before they could mobilize any kind of opposition. Now, that does appear to, if that was the intention, and I've got no proof of that, people are suspicious, but it's no more than that at the moment. That doesn't appear to have worked. There's more than 35,000 reasons and lots of letters showing that hasn't worked.
Interesting. Well, interestingly, on a related note to that, I actually had a conversation a couple of days ago with a retired bursar from Newcastle University, bursar and other things. He had various roles at the university, but nonetheless a higher up, someone who's been honoured by the honours system indeed, so a very respectable person in this country. Although no, that doesn't necessarily always follow, does it? But he is a lovely person and respectable person. But he was saying it's okay in this instance. It will take several months for this process to go through. There's plenty of time to discuss, debate, and indeed to put a case forward for saving an archaeology department in a Russell Group university. And when I said, well, actually no, it's going to Senate on the 23rd, I believe, of June.
I think yes.
Yeah. So it's basically in less than a month, or at that point, I think it was around about 30 days. He was flabbergasted by that timetable. So. Again, it's one of those things where we'd have to confirm what is the standard for Sheffield and how this particular timetable matches up to that standard. But he thought that there was something more than simply an open review going on if the timetable has seemingly been stepped up. And indeed, as you say, giving people a week's public notice before a vote happens is not a good look. I suppose all we can really say is that we'll continue to cover this story as developments occur. We will, of course, look at other archaeological news stories as well in the watching brief in the coming weeks as well. But I suppose I'd like to end on just a note of pointing to one of the links below, one of the headlines, where the Sheffield Telegraph has said that community heritage groups in Sheffield are in the process of unearthing the crucial local value of the world-renowned City University Archaeology Department as part of an ongoing campaign now. So as far as we just heard in the interview, as far as staff and students are concerned, but also as far as local groups are concerned, there is still time to fight this and to bring it to Senate's attention. The actual headline here is "Invaluable. Sheffield heritage leaders unearth value of University Archaeology Department as decision is made on its future." So the fight isn't over yet. We shouldn't be too dejected, despite what we've been seeing on Twitter. A little bit of anger and frustration is understandable, but maybe, hopefully, we can focus ourselves, and it's not too late to see a positive outcome here. Hopefully.
No, and I think I'd say from my own point of view, and from obviously the point of view of somebody who does really journalism about archaeology these days, this is effectively what the pipeline is, and what my contributions to this platform are. I've always said, since we started doing this kind of work, that I'd go with the old journalistic adage, which is that journalism is something somebody doesn't want you to know about. Everything else is just public relations. And I think what we've seen from Sheffield up until now is principally public relations. Not particularly good and effective public relations, but they've been trying to keep control of the narrative. And I think now the story's broken, they've lost control of the narrative. They will play it how they'll play it, but we'll be trying, people like me and others who are working on this story, and it has attracted attention. Local BBC's been following it, local BBC Radio has been following it. I think we have a lot of places potentially to go even before Senate meets, and then finally the University Council makes the final decision.
Yes. Okay. Well, until then, everyone, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.